What's good, everybody? This is Yugioh and welcome to my channel. This is our very first video and we are going to be doing a ban list prediction. So with the fire format kind of coming to an end, we're kind of moving on into the Legacy of Destruction format at the end of April. We have gotten to see Snake Eye and Snake Eye Fire King dominate this format, and we are kind of in need for a ban list. So today we're going to talk about what I think should happen on this upcoming ban list and the changes that should be made. So first and foremost, I think we should talk about that big elephant in the room, which is the fire decks. Jib, how do you think the fire deck should be hit? Well, if you're asking that question, I have an answer for you. So first and foremost, for the limits, I don't think any fire card should be necessarily banned on this upcoming list. I thought about it for a little while. If you ban original Sinful Spoil, then the fire decks become borderline unplayable. As for the Snake Eye engine, the witches and wanteds in your deck become useless, and the poplars heavily underpowered. So in order to compensate for that, I think that the deck should be heavily limited in the wanted engine. I think that Diabellstar the Black Witch should be limited along with her trusty wanted poster. I think that both of these cards should be limited to one in order to restrict access to the original Sinful Spoil through extension plays. I think having a good normal summon in Snake Eye Ash and an extender and Bonfire is really good for a deck, but then having 6 more extenders, 3 of which also equal a draw, is kind of overpowered. And the grind game that these cards add to the engine is just not fair. And I think by limiting both of these cards, you heavily restrict the extension plays of Snake Eye, which in the first place, Snake Eye didn't have that much extension. If you really think about it, Snake Eye only really has 3 pushes, counting Lullaby of Obedience, which is commonly played now. But really, you just have your normal summon push, your witch push, and then if your normal summon gets stopped, then a bonfire push. If you limit both of these cards, then they're less likely to have the additional push to play past the hand trap on their normal summon, and it might make other versions of the deck more interesting. Let's say that. So in that same note, I think that Kirin, Fire King Kirin, should be semi-limited or even limited. Honestly, I think that Kirin should be hit to 1. I think Kirin is a card that even at 1 is still very playable, but I think that the Fire King engine, if the pure Snake Eye deck gets hit, then the Fire King engine will just completely dominate the game. So I also think that the Fire King engine should be hit in some sort of form. So I think that limiting Kirin allows the Fire King engine to still be highly competitive and very sustainable on your first turn, but it hits the grind game of the deck a little bit more. Some players have been cutting Kirin to 2 already, and even talking about post side and cutting Kirin to 1 when they go second. So it's not really killing the Fire King engine. The Fire King engine is still pretty intact with 1 Kirin. It's just killing the grind game of these decks a little bit more, while allowing the power ceiling to stay the same. So next on the list, I think is the first card on the list that I think should be banned, and I think that's Albion the Sanctifier. I think Albion the Sanctifier is a pretty unfair card. Not being able to target this card is super broken. It's basically the card that's enabling Despia in order to continue to puppet lock the opponent, which I think banning the Gimmick Puppet is a little bit naive, because there are 3 or 4 other cards that can easily replace the Gimmick Puppet, whether it be Jowgen, whether it be Orthos, the DD card. A lot of cards can replace the Gimmick Puppet. So I think that hitting Albion altogether would just like kill that route altogether, while allowing Branded Despia to stay a very competitive deck. You still have cards like Branded in Red, Mirror Jade, Guardian Chimera, so the deck is still very powerful, but you remove that unfair lock factor. And by that same note, I think the next card that should be banned is Harpy's Featherstorm. I think the player base has been begging for this for a while, but I think that Harpy's Featherstorm should be banned along with Floundery's magnificent map going to 1. I just dislike Flunder a lot. Despite the controversies that I've had with Flunder players in the pack, shout out to the Dark Charmer. I just think that this deck is not fair. So this deck falls in and out of the meta constantly, but when it's in the meta, it's always in the meta for the wrong reasons. And I think hitting these 2 cards would finally put a nail in the coffin of Flunderies and allow other control decks in order to have a chance of shining, like Kashtira as an anti-meta deck. I think Kashtira as an anti-meta deck is much more fun to play against and much more interactive than just having double M-Pen, Dimensional Shifter plus Harpy's Featherstorm. It's just really not fun to play against. And then another hit that I think was overdue, it should have been done on the last ban list, but because the new fire decks were coming out, I assume Konami didn't want to do this hit, is I think that Pot of Prosperity should start to work its way down the list. I don't know if they're going to limit it immediately. I think they're going to take sort of a Desires approach, where it went from 3 to 2, and then 2 to 1, and then it worked its way back up. But I think Pot of Prosperity should start working its way down to the limit section. It still is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best in a vacuum, Yu-Gi-Oh cards that we have available. Being able to see the top 6 cards of your deck and pick one to add to your hand is really broken at grabbing extenders, grabbing cards to nail your opponent's coffin, like Floodgates, post side, grabbing hand traps, grabbing board breakers that you need to help break a board. The card is just very, very high quality, and I think that it should start working its way to the limited section. Another card that I think we should talk, or another 2 cards that I think we should talk about that I think should also be hit on this next ban list, and I don't know if Konami will do this, but I think Summon Limit and Anti-Spell Fragrance should be limited, if not banned. I feel like Anti-Spell is a card that I feel like should have been banned a long time ago because it's seen the most play of all the Floodgates other than maybe a card like Skill Drain. But Summon Limit in recent years has also filled that niche of a blowout go first card that just auto wins you the game. I think that these 2 Floodgates, along with the other ones being Rivalry, Goes In, There Can Be, which all have come in and out of the meta, but those ones were limited on the last list. I'm surprised that they didn't also limit Anti-Spell and Summon Limit. But those cards should be at 1, if not banned. So that's kind of all I have for the ban list. As for cards that can come back, cards like say for instance Kirin, cards like Heavy Storm, cards like Zen Mighty can come off the list, but I'm really talking about what needs to change in the meta in order to rebalance the game when getting ready for Legacy of Destruction. And I feel like a ban list like this would greatly shake up the meta and allow for other decks that were kind of pushed down to rejoin the meta, like Labyrinth, like Rescue Ace, Unchained, etc. And get ready for the new decks like Tenpai. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like always, like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day.